You're listening to episode 91 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business and personal development strategies. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and each week I bring you inspiring people, stories, insights, and lessons to help you and your business to grow in this next chapter of your life. Thanks for spending your time with me today. I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello, and welcome to the very first Your Next Chapter podcast episode for 2019. Now, today is the 25th of February that I'm recording this episode, and it's the first one in March for you, my lovely listener. It's been quite a while since I've been in your ear, in your car, on your walk, however it is that you listen to these episodes. And so apologies for making you wait for so long. And thank you for those of you who've sent me emails saying, when is the next one coming out? I'm missing you. That was rather lovely to hear. It has been a bit of a break, and I hope within the time that I've been away from you, lots of wonderful things have been happening. The year has certainly gone off and bolted, and I hope that the goals that you had for yourself at the beginning of the year after reverse gapping and considering your 2018 have already started to come to fruition. Hopefully your next chapter is unfolding for you this year. So why did I wait so long to come back? Well, to be honest, having December and January off is a really big part of the way in which I approach work. I believe that your next chapter and your next chapter business need to complement rather than command your life. And for me, that really means taking that time out to spend with myself and my family over that December and January period. So that means my active business is really for 10 months of the year. So when I'm planning, I need to take that into account when it comes to the sort of services I plan, the programs that I deliver, the way that I'll amortize my revenue over that time period, because, you know, Christmas can be expensive, and it's all worked out fine. And I guess the main message that I wanted to share with you there, and I believe is congruent with everything that I teach and share, is that you need to decide what role does your business play in your life. Yeah, it's up to you to decide how you want that to play out. And if that means, like me, that you want to have some time off for creativity and consideration and relaxation over that period of the year, then you are completely and utterly able to do that. I believe your business needs to serve you just as much as you serve your clients. So I was doing a lot of consideration over the period, a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and I left you with some messages last year about what 2019 was going to look like. And one of those was the possibility that I was going to rename the podcast. But I actually decided to stick with it as I was thinking over that Christmas period. The only thing that's really changing is the format in terms of who I'm talking with. I've always spoken with, I think, incredibly interesting people with incredibly interesting stories to share. And there's just going to be more of that this year. You know, my role, my absolute purpose, I know, is to share the stories and facilitate the conversations that inspire next chapters. And that next chapter for you could be a huge change from what you're doing now. It could be a little tiny move in a new direction. It could be a new project. It could be a new life. There's so many different things that a next chapter can mean for you. I look at it through the lens of business, the concept of channeling your experience and your expertise into an entity that sits at the intersection of fulfillment, very much for you, and contribution, very much for the world. And I know that you have an enormous amount to give. Now, a lot of the women that I work with, they have an existing business, and what they're doing is that they are realigning that business with this new thing that is calling them. And the more I was looking back over the interviews that I've had, the clients that I've served, the conversations that I've facilitated at Next Chapter Salon dinners and things like that, I started to see a very specific model that was coming out. And I want to share this model with you in today's podcast so you can identify where you are in the Next Chapter model, and so sort of anticipate what it is that's coming up next, or perhaps even to identify what it is that you're feeling, so where you are within the model. So this is the beginning of, and you know, I'm saying this out loud again more than once, this is the beginning of the book that I am writing at the moment with the help of a beautiful book coach and and my belief buddies. If you've been with me for a while, you'll know what belief buddies are and how important they are to you, those belief buddies who hold your vision in their heart just as clearly as you do. And they encourage you when you hit the rocks, and they celebrate with you when you hit the top of the mountain and everything in between. So the book will be out later this year. Hand on heart, there is my commitment right here. And perhaps you can be one of my accountability buddies that keeps me on track. I'm really excited about getting these concepts that are really starting to bubble up and be captured into pages for you. You know how much I love books. And in fact, to the extent that I've even started a Next Chapter virtual book club, but more about that later. So let's talk about the model. Let's find out where you are within the model. Okay, there's 2 zones, and I'm going to scribble out a bit of a drawing of this and pop it onto the page, the notes page, the show notes for this particular episode. So you'll be able to find that at angelaraspass.com/9191, where you'll find the notes and also my little hand-drawn model. Hope you can decipher it. There's 2 sides to the model. On one side, you have the deliberation zone, and on the other side, you have the doing zone. And those zones, right through the middle, is the decision, because nothing happens until you make the decision. So let's talk about what's on the left-hand side, the deliberation zone. Now, the very first step here is that of discontent. Okay, this is when you recognize that a next chapter is looming, when you've got these feelings of discontentment. Now, they can come internally. Okay, so there's this feeling internally, which is usually seen with negative self-talk, when you're like, everything sucks, or I'm so bored, or I'm not capable of doing any more. You're feeling restless, you're feeling irritable, you're feeling discontent. Now, there's many ways in which this can also show up where you're just not excited about getting out of bed and doing the things that you're doing. But it can also have an external projection where people around you are making you cranky. Like, that's when you're projecting onto them that nothing and no one can make you happy. And we quite often take this discontent out on the people around us. So beware, family. You may cop this if I'm not feeling so happy. Now, this discontentment can be triggered by what other people are doing. You can see other people who have, in my case, the discontent came from wanting to write a book and seeing lots of other people writing. But that's a positive trigger because it can inspire you to be discerning and to grow. The negative triggering is where you can get intimidated, where you feel that you're measuring yourself against someone else, coming up not so great, and stagnating. That's the intimidation side of the trigger of discontent. But really, overall, you're overwhelmed by a sense of, there's got to be more. I'm just not happy. Now, we can stay in that discontent stage, and we could view it as negative, but it's actually really positive because you have to become aware of no longer being satisfied with the status quo, whatever that looks like for you, before you can move into the next stage. So if you're feeling some discontentment and it keeps hanging around and circling back and nibbling at the edges of you, you can't ignore it forever. And I want to tell you that this is really about, can I use the term midwife? Sorry, midlife with you. This is about no midlife crisis here. This is about midlife expansion. So discontentment is the first step. It's a good thing. So from the discontentment, once you've worked out you're not happy, Jan, then we need to work out, what do you actually want? What do you desire? That's the second step. Okay, now it's really interesting. I was listening to another podcast. I honestly can't remember which one it was, but it was talking about, to a certain stage in life, life is lived forward. Okay, we're looking forward to things that are happening and things that are coming and possibilities and expansion and excitement. Then we hit a certain stage of life and we start living life backwards. You start looking at everything that's come before and questioning your decisions and sort of honing for the good old days, so to speak, when there was perhaps less responsibility and more care, free. Well, I want you to challenge that, because in the desire stage, this is when you get to redefine what it is that you want to do when you grow up with the rest of your life. Now, I don't want you to get too tied up in purpose. Purpose can be an absolute conundrum we can get just bogged down in. What we're looking for is for you not necessarily to hit the bullseye, but to be in the territory of purpose and desire. So this is where you're starting to understand what is the next chapter for you. And what informs that sort of desire? What creates it? Well, some of the things to consider are, what makes you curious? What do you want to know more about? What are you interested in? Think about when you're flicking through a newspaper. They still do exist, believe me. Or even if you're going through your social media feed, what grabs your curiosity and interests you? Have a look at that. Be aware of, if I gave you a soapbox and said, what is it that is unfair in the world? Or what is it that you want to change in the world? Or who needs your help? What would you talk about? What would you jump on that soapbox and talk about? And also consider, we don't get to this stage of life unscathed. There's certainly challenges that you've overcome that could be indicative of what is waiting for you to create and develop in your next chapter. So think about the lessons you've learned and who would benefit from those. This is where you start to create that desire and you start thinking about, wow, I could do this. I could create that. I could start that business. I could change my business. I could introduce that service. I could do that thing. Start thinking about those. Those are your desires. And that's what we want to follow. Because remember, a next chapter business is at that intersection of contribution and fulfillment. So what it is that lights you up and what it is that other people need. It sits between the two of them. After desire, when you start journaling and thinking and discussing and researching and really having a look at what's possible, you get to a bit of a stalemate because you can't move forward until you've actually decided this is the thing that I'm going to do. Up until then, you are just in this zone of thinking about it. Okay? So, but what stops you from making a decision? Tons of roadblocks. Don't be surprised if these come up. Doubt and detours and disillusionment and sometimes even despair. Those thoughts of, I can't really make this happen. Now, I could talk for hours about this stuff because self-belief, your ability to back yourself, to be confident enough to take the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. That is at least half a dozen podcast episodes all in itself. It's probably the subject that gets talked about the most in all of my masterminds, my strategy sessions, on the retreats, everything, at the salon dinners. That self-belief, that's the piece we have to keep working on. It's the opposite of self-doubt. Okay, and it's not something that you can just apply one morning and that's it, you're done for life. You have to keep revisiting it and working on your belief, which is why those belief buddies as a part of that are so important. So we can talk about doubt, but at the end of the day, you get to a stage where the doubt is not going to stop you. You are going, screw it, I'm going to do it. As my girlfriend said yesterday when we were working on all this content that was spilling out of me, all these different thoughts we were corralling. So the decision stage, when you get to the decision stage, there's questions that you need to ask yourself. I think Brené Brown has one of the very best quotes. She says that, midlife is when the universe taps you on the arm and says, I'm not kidding around anymore. Use the gifts you were given. I think I paraphrased that slightly, but you may have seen the quote. It's a really important one. So this is the point for you to decide. Okay, to decide means you cut off other options and you choose to move forward. Now, there's questions around we need to look at, again, what role this new business, because I'm talking about the lens of business, will play in your life. And there's things to look at in terms of, is it financially viable? Is it desirable? Is there a big enough market? There's all these type of things you have to consider to make an informed and an intelligent and a mature choice. But you've got to give yourself some credit here. Look down deep inside of you. Is this the thing that you want to do? And if not now, then when? You're not being selfish if you want to pursue something here. It is okay to want more, even when your life is good. Even when your business has been going well, it's okay to want to change it, to redirect it, to stop that one, start another one. It's all okay. It's up to you to define what this next chapter is going to look like. But you can't step forward until you've made that decision. Decision number 1, what will I do? And decision number 2, do I back myself enough to go through with it? So I'm going to assume that it's a big fat yes to both of those questions, that you are making the decision that you are going to step into this next chapter. So what comes next? Well, that's design. So we're up to stage 4 now, where you have to find this, or actually start to create the plan, the map that'll take you from where you are to where you want to be. And there's a lot of research that has to happen here, because your business is only going to be sustainable when your design is aligned with who you are. We're building a strengths-based business here, a business that, as I said, complements, it doesn't command your life. So look, from a business perspective, you've really got to be clear on what your message is, who you're taking that message to, what model you are creating to deliver your services through, and how you will market, how you will communicate that to the world, how you will issue the invitations to the people who can be helped by the services that you have to provide. That's the real nuts and bolts business marketing side of things, really obviously encapsulated in a very short sentence, but you get the overall idea. But then I want you to be working within a framework. Now, I'm a huge believer in frameworks, not formulas. So formulas, that one size fits all, do this thing and then voila, you will have riches and fortune beyond your wildest dreams. Don't believe in formulas, I really don't. But I also don't believe in us just flapping in the wind, just doing whatever comes to mind. As always, there is a middle ground, and that's what I call a framework. So it is that space between when you trust yourself to follow the steps that come after that decision, but when you're also open to having insights and assistance and help from other people who've trod that path before. Now, a point that I want to make here is take yourself out of the hierarchy concept. This is not a above and below type thing. This is that, imagine that the whole world of women in business is like a long line. And there's women that started before you, so they're further down the path. And they will turn around and help you. We can learn from them. There's also women who are behind you. They started after you. And it's your job to turn around and to help and assist and inspire them. So imagine this beautiful long continuum. So as you're creating your framework with that in mind, by that I mean there is no perfect timing. We just start when we're ready. We start with what we have. We keep moving forward. I use cascade planning in my frameworks, which you are most welcome to borrow in every shape or form and then change it so that it fits you better. But we start with our vision. What is your compelling why? Why are you doing this thing? What is it that is really connected with you internally that calls you to do this? With me, it's so much because I strongly and utterly believe that if we could harness all of the wisdom and the experience and the expertise of women of our age, usually we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, if we could harness all of that power and unleash it into the world, my God, we could move mountains, ladies. We certainly could. So get clear on what is your vision, what is your compelling why. Then think about who are the benefactors, who are you here to help. Then you set your goals. What are the goals that underpin your vision? Underneath a goal comes a strategy, and underneath a strategy comes the little bitsy things you do, the tactics. Now you're going to have to create and probably establish new skills. You're going to have to access some resources, and you're certainly going to have to ask for some assistance. So that type of framework of taking your big picture of what it is that you're creating and putting it into that vision, benefactors, goals, strategies, tactics, skills, resources, and assistance. I'll pop these on the page for you so you can go through them. And I can actually provide you a copy of a cascade plan framework as well if you would like. But that is the way that you are going to be designing this next chapter. Obviously, I have to keep this quite generic at this stage because your chapter looks different to my chapter, which looks different to her chapter, and so on and such forth. But using that framework to actually design the steps forward is so, so important. Now let's take you into the next step. You've done it. You were discontented. You recognized the desire and shaped and formed what that was going to be. You made the decision that now is the time. I'm not waiting any longer. I'm bringing this into the world. You've then designed your own framework and put that into the model into place of how you're going to deliver this to the world. Now it's time to declare to yourself, to your supporters, and to the world that this is my next chapter. This is the thing that I am here to create and deliver. Okay, now that declaration, oh my goodness, it can happen in so many different ways. But the first step is to set yourself a deadline. Like, when are you going to launch this thing? When will you announce this thing? Okay, reverse gapping yourself and looking at how far you've come will give you the future fuel to put it out there into the world. We need to cross that threshold from private dreaming to public profiling. For some people, that can mean getting all your friends together and actually having an announcement party. For someone else, it could be putting it out there on Facebook. For someone else, it could be getting in there to the bank manager. There's many different ways in which you can declare it, and you need to define that. But that declaring is drawing a line in the sand. I am now sending this live, whatever this is. Now, all through these points, my darling, there is going to be doubt that keeps rearing its ugly head. And at this stage, perfectionism could be the one that really trips you up. No, it's not ready yet. It's not perfect yet. It's not right yet. I cannot declare to the world this is the thing. Honestly, think of this as Horizon 1. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay, because your next chapter is an evolution. It's not a revolution. Of course you're going to change it. Of course it's going to be different as you get into motion, get momentum going, and recognize things that don't work quite the way you thought they would, and they need to be changed. That is fine. We all build the airplane whilst it's taxiing down the runway. That's completely normal. But you cannot wait until it is perfectly pristine and polished. Perfection does not exist. And in fact, authenticity trumps perfection every single time. And I know that this project, this business, this new thing that you are creating, it's perfect as it is. Boots and all, creases and all, chips and all. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters how it feels and the difference that it can make in the world. Don't deny the world by not putting your contribution out there. Okay? Don't be afraid of judgment or being seen. We are all in this together. All of us Next Chapter women are welcoming your contribution with open arms. And then that ripple effect as it moves out into the world. And by world, I don't necessarily mean that you have to take over the world. It can be your little corner of the world that you are impacting. Because remember, you get to decide the role that this business plays in your life. You get to decide the impact that you want to make. And that may grow significantly over time, but it is always up to you to define the parameters of your next chapter. So there's all these thoughts when I was looking at this. There's many other pieces, but this is the basic concept of discontent, desire, decision, design, declare, with doubt rippling through at all points. That is the basic concept of stepping into your next chapter. And I've interviewed and worked with so many women now. We are just overflowing with ideas. We have so much to contribute. It excites me every single day. And I believe that enthusiasm is currency. And so my job this year, throughout 2019 and beyond, is to continue to find the stories and share them with you, to share my own insights, to share what's happening in my world as I continually dynamically create and step into chapter after chapter after chapter. I am staring a big belly button birthday in the face. This Friday I turned 50. And I cannot wait. A friend and client of mine was describing this morning that I am entering the festival of 50. So it's going to be a big year. And I know that it's just beginning. The impacts that I can have on my chosen part of the world is just beginning. And I'm hugely excited by that. And that's how I know that it's also just beginning for you. Whatever you're doing now, you've already contributed in many, many ways. But if you have got that feeling that there is more possible for you, then you are in exceptionally good company. That feeling of discontent, those little prickles around the edges, pause and listen to them. See where they lead you to in terms of desire, and then decide to start stepping into that next version of you. May 2019 be an awesome one for you. Embrace the challenges as much as the triumphs, because we are here to grow. And this Next Chapter community, it's here for you as well. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know what you are planning. What is coming up for you? Are there doubts that are tripping you up? Are you not quite sure what that desire is yet? Is there design pieces that you need some insight on? There are so many ways in which you can reach out and get the feedback and the assistance that you need from myself, from your own belief buddies, from many, many people out there in the world. We're all wanting you to flourish in your next chapter, I promise. And I can feel it right now. You feel that smile? That smile that's tugging at the edges of your face? That is the smile of possibility. You know that there is something more waiting for you and that you are going to step into it. Okay. So that's a little bit of an overview of how I see these next chapters. It's a bit of a drawing a line in the sand of it's time for me to be podcasting again and to share these thoughts with you. I cannot wait to share the stories of women I've already begun to interview for the podcast for this year, and many more that I want to talk to. I'm getting applications quite regularly of ladies who have fabulous stories to share. And remember, the stories they're all different sizes and they're different flavors. How do I describe this? It comes down to this idea that no matter what the next chapter looks like for you, it's completely and utterly valid, because it is all about what lights you up and then contributes to the world. So thank you so much for spending your time here with me on today's a little bit of a rambling podcast. Sometimes my excitement can just trip me up, but I hope that you hear within this message where you sit in that next chapter journey and what the next step is for you. So have a wonderful, wonderful week. I will be back with you very soon, and thank you for taking the time to listen to the concepts behind your next chapter. This is Angela Raspass, your Next Chapter Business Mentor, and I will talk to you again very soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to share it, perhaps leave a review in iTunes, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for your own business breakthrough at the moment, then I've got something special for you. Visit angelaraspass.com/breakthrough guide. That e-guide takes you through the 4 key gaps to close that may be stopping you from reaching the next level in your business. I hope it's extremely helpful, and I look forward to talking with you again on the next episode.